All righty. Good
Right.
morning, everybody. I know Brenda's still getting her tech stuff sorted out, but we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to Seeking the Center, the Honest Woman's podcast. I'm super blessed to be joined today by Rukmini, Ani, Vrinda, three super powerhouses of creativity, and it's very fitting to be talking today about creativity and the feminine voice, which I think is such a valuable topic. And just in our kind of like warm-up conversation, we all know each other, so that's nice. But in our warm-up conversation, we've gotten a chance to just explore the topic, and just kind of skimming over the surface, so much was generated. So I hope that this is just a primer, the beginning of a conversation, an important conversation about what it's like to be a Bhakti artist in a woman's body, what it's like to interpret and explore the feminine experience, and also what it's like to make contact with feminine personalities, the feminine divine in our art. So hopefully that'll be some of what we talk about today. Welcome, ladies. It's so wonderful to have you.
Thanks, Sonia.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. I had a few questions in mind that I thought would be helpful, but for some of our viewers who may not be familiar with the kind of art that each of you all make, I thought it would be interesting for maybe each of you to talk about, where is your art right now? What is the art that you're in touch with? Even maybe not the art that you're making, but the art that you are kind of taking in or immersing yourself in. Where are you at right now? Historically, you may have done dance or art or, whatever. So you can give a little bit of what your background is, but, where do you find that art is really alive for you today? And then we'll take it from there. And whoever would like to start can go ahead.
All right, I'll start.
Yes.
I guess my history in art has been dance. I've studied since I was a little girl. I've been in Alatra for 20 years teaching dance, and I'm still teaching dance. And there's been a lot of opportunity for creativity through dance, through Bharatanatyam, South Indian classical dance. Right now, I would say I create dances for my students. But as of now, I think my art is my motherhood. That is my priority. That's where my creativity lies. Engaging my children, taking care of my home for now. And I just recently started continuing classes with my teacher in India online. So yes, dance is definitely my creative output. But I feel my art of motherhood enriches my dance, and my dance enriches my motherhood for sure.
It's really beautiful, Ani. Thinking of my own, I guess I would put myself as like a visual artist or an illustrator. But it's interesting. I remember being like 13, 12 years old and like being passionate about graphic design, which some people wouldn't think as like an art, but I just felt this desire to like rebrand ISKCON, to rebrand things, make things beautiful. I had like this burning passion as a teenager that like every poster I saw was gross and like distasteful, and I just had a desire like I want to make things beautiful when we market it. So in one sense, there was like this desire to like present things very nicely in a marketing sense. But I do think I've always had the spirit of an artist. And it wasn't until later on that I got more into drawing, and that's always been there. And I was a graphic designer, but I tell people I almost like stumbled into my art, at least the art that I do now, accidentally. I would say I'm known for drawing emotions, which is hilarious because I don't think I was very in touch with my emotions as a kid. It's like, how did that happen? But I like to tell people I stumbled into this accidentally, because sometimes I feel like when we express our art, it isn't this like, I want to be an artist and this is my plan, my 10-step plan. It just kind of manifests and happens as you allow it to. It's like a very intangible, kind of mystical process. So I tell people that like, the forum of how that happened was maybe 5-6 years ago when I started doing these 100-day projects. If anyone knows me, I talk way too much about it. It's probably ridiculous at this point. But it's just, for me, it was such a transformational process because it taught me that being an artist isn't doing this one grand painting or being known for something. It's like the small daily things that you do every day. And then just by doing daily doodles, I just got more confident in watercolor. And then that led to something else. And it's been like 6 years of doing it somehow. And it's not because I'm really disciplined. Like, I'm really not. It's just this... the process of creativity, I feel like I've become so transformed by and passionate about it. And it's not the result of creativity. It's not the art that I create. Because if you look at what I do, a lot of it is like these very simple caricatures, and it's artistically not this visual, like, impressive thing, but it's the process of how I do it that I really love it. So that's a little bit of what I do. And I'd say at this moment, I feel just kind of alive in it. And I feel a sense of urgency, I think, because being like 28 and maybe we can talk about this later, but sometimes it feels like, oh, well, you know, one day when I get married or have kids, I won't be able to do it. So really, this is all I'm doing now. So that's what I feel in it, although it's something I want to make it more holistic in my life, that wherever I'm at in my life, I want that to always be part of it. Like you said so beautifully, it's like your motherhood and your art, it's all part of it. And I really love that, because otherwise I do have that fear. That I can only do it now while I'm young, while I have the time, and then, you know, one day I'll have to retire from that and do something more practical. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I like that you were saying it's not about the output necessarily, like what the result looks like. It's that for you, the experience of creating is so invigorating, and it's so almost like kind of intangible, that kind of, you know, it's like a feeling that you get, or an experience that you have, that's what keeps you coming back, right?
Yeah, so true.
Amazing. Brenda, are you ready to share? You feel like you got your tech stuff sorted out?
I hope so, though. I think the internet seems to be sketchy still over here. There must be a cloud right over my house.
Oh, we can hear you good.
Yeah, I can relate to what you were saying, Rukmini, about stumbling into something and not, you know, seeing a trajectory, and then suddenly here I am, you know.
Mm-hmm.
For the past 10 years, my mom and I have been working on this retelling of the Ramayana, the Sita's Fire trilogy. And I always had a passion for stories. I was such an avid reader, but I didn't envision myself, oh, I'm going to be an author, or I'm going to, you know, and was part of the process to take on the Ramayana, which is such an epic piece of art and has so many strings attached and so many hearts, you know. So I approach it with a lot of reverence and initially trepidation.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, now 10 years in, I also feel a sense of urgency and really a sense of passion, because the more I read these works, the more I am fascinated by the female characters. And the more I see that there's just isn't enough about them in the original text. You know, that presents a real conundrum for those of us who have been steeped in, like, oh, everything you need to know is there in the Shastra, it's there in the scriptures.
Mm-hmm.
And then my experience and what I'm really seeing is, wait a minute, there isn't even half of what I want to know about the female characters. You know, Sita, even Kaikeyi, Manthara, Kaushalya, or, you know, Queen Kunti. I want to know so much more. I want to know everything. I want to know, how did they mother? How, you know, what did they go through every day, every month? What were their struggles, their challenges? What was the rich complexity of their life? So, you know, I definitely feel like I'm deeply in the meditation about, especially Sita, but even others, you know, like Queen Kunti and all the females from the Ramayana, even, you know, Mandodari, Ravan's wife, or Shurpanak, you know, all of them. I'm just so fascinated by them. And, you know, it's, again, it's a unique thing where we really cannot rely on the Shastra to tell us, because it's just not there. And, you know, so it's a really, for me, you know, I go deeper and deeper into what is there. And then I just have to open up to grace, to prayer, to meditation, to, like, you know, allow me to understand a little bit more. And then, you know, with as much humility as I'm capable of, to be a channel for that. And it's the most satisfying thing in my life, aside from being a mom and my kids.
Beautiful. Yeah, so I think it's so important, something that you touched on, and we definitely wanted to, address this when we were exploring what to talk about today, which is there are certain aspects of being an artist in a woman's body and exploring the voices of women in these stories, or even contacting things that are typically considered kind of more of the feminine energy, emotions, feelings, experiences, that which is like a little difficult to categorize or be named, that kind of thing. And so I was hoping that each of you guys could tell me a little bit about, what were your struggles or some of the challenges that you encountered. Brenda, you touched on it, in your experience of reading scripture, which is like, where are the voices of these women personalities? What was their inner experience? What was their day-to-day life like? What was their perspective, or what was their take? Kind of filling in those gaps that we see in the literature. But along those lines, what challenges did you guys encounter in your art, or perhaps in the community, in terms of femininity in art? And of course, it's popcorn style, whoever would like to speak. We're all like,
I know. Ani, would you like to speak?
I feel like I'll get a clearer view when other people speak, but maybe I'll share something. For the last 10 years, I've been doing a girls' summer camp at my dance studio. And we do crafts, and we also do something age-appropriate philosophy, something from our Shastra. And I focus on the female aspect of whatever it is. And one camp, we were focusing on the 9 processes of devotion and devotional service, how to serve Krishna in 9 different ways. And I realized that all the examples were men, except for prayers of Queen Kunti, and then like Lakshmi Devi worshiping the lotus feet. And I was like, I'm going to go and find an example for all of these with women. And I realized I wish someone had done that for me when I was little, and to glorify all the tasks and the responsibilities that women have, to glorify them and see how you can do them in Krishna service. The last camp I held, we did, our theme for the first week was Vaishnavi saints. And I asked Chadaratma, who's a Vaishnav saint expert, I was like, can you think of Vaishnavi saints that you can come and give a lecture on them? And it made him realize, wow, I don't know that much about that many. I will speak on the ones I know. And we learned these amazing stories about, Sita Thakurani and her sister Sri Devi, and the miracles they performed, and Ganga Mata Goswamini. And he said, well, Ani, you've set me up. I need to go and study and have more facts and stories on the lives of Vaishnavi saints. So I think that's a huge thing, is being able to represent the feminine in our philosophy, and as examples, as someone you can relate to. That's, I think, so yeah, through art, I guess my art is also, teaching. So finding creative ways to represent the female voice in anything we teach, so that there's a balance.
So it sounds like, kind of in your experience, Ani, and then also kind of what Brenda was saying, it's almost like an excavation of like, where is the information on these women, and like noticing that it's not prominent, it's not something that's easily accessible, it's not something that is like praised, let's say, as commonly as some of the male pastimes and that kind of thing. And so really, it in us kind of having a curiosity about it, we actually can spark curiosity in others of like, I never thought about, well, what did Sita Thakurani, what was her life like? I didn't even know she had a sister until you just said that right now. So,
Yeah.
it's interesting to meditate on, like, we don't even know that we don't know about them.
And they both married Advaitacharya.
Oh, wow.
Bhudevi and Sridevi, because he's Mahavishnu.
Oh, that makes so much sense. Oh, beautiful.
I love this. I don't feel like I have too much particularly on this to say, but I just love your examples, both Brenda, just what you're doing with your book, and then Ani with teaching younger girls. Just because when you're saying it, I'm also realizing how much it's needed to excavate and share these stories with other girls, because it's just not there. And being like a young girl also growing up in this community, you don't realize it's not there, and you don't realize the difference it makes to have those examples. And also just to have other female artists and teachers. Like, I was one of Ani's dance students, and like to see another woman really be so expressive and expressing her art and like making that really a statement is, I think it leaves like really powerful impressions on girls and kids. And so I'm just reflecting on that because it's not something I consciously realize. And I remember being a kid and looking at beautiful dance performances, or like either Ani's dancing, her students, and like feeling like moved to tears, not just because it's like a beautiful, but like something about seeing another girl step into her power like that and expressing herself so beautifully is like almost foreign, which is a little sad to say. But when you do see it, whether it's someone on stage with a microphone or dancing, I think it just leaves like really invaluable impressions. And so you can't even say how those like manifest later, but I just like hearing that I felt that those impressions were totally laid on me and how needed that is. And like just feeling really happy that that can be given more and more to younger girls, and kind of like how missing that is. Yeah.
That really resonates with me because growing up, I was super, super shy, and dance kind of gave me a voice. And then it gave me a power through that voice. And then it gave me a way to communicate. And then it gave me all these gifts where I was able to share it with others. And then I was able to be of service. And then I was able to be a conduit for Krishna's passage.
Wow.
And I see like when my students were performing and I was with them, or when they were without me, to be a woman and to step into her power, like you said, what is our power? Main powers are to be beautiful, graceful, and to have like this deep wealth of expression. To do that full, adorned on stage, acknowledged, applauded, was what a gift for these girls, like these young women, and to be valued. And that was something one of my dance mentors, Leela, she said, you need to be invited to the festival, you need to be hosted, you need to be taken care of, because it wasn't just that we were an artist, but we were valued. And now you see it more that women are valued in other aspects, other roles at festivals or events. But back in the time when I first started dancing at festivals, that was kind of like the only place that was of service. A woman can, unless she's in the kitchen or something, it's also valued. But to be publicly acknowledged was to be on the stage. And I feel very fortunate to have had that experience and to have realized that it made such a big impact on the students as they dance, to see that they had something to offer. And before that, I know a lot of them didn't really know what they had to offer.
Yeah, I love that. And like you said, you stood into your power, but then you also empowered others.
Yes.
And that's really, really great to see generationally.
Yeah. And besides all the things like the 100-day project, how you're saying that the practice, every dance class, these girls, the friendships they made, the connections they made, just doing this together, and their connection with spirituality, with Krishna. I feel like for me, that has been my lifeline. The dance has cemented my connection with Krishna. No matter what I'm doing in life, I have Krishna because of my dance. And that's been a huge blessing. So to be able to give that to others, for sure, and to satisfy those feminine desires for adorning oneself and beauty, all of those desires women have, and the expression, and it's all fulfilled through dance. So yeah, that is a loud woman voice that is satisfied through, yeah.
Yeah, so I think you're kind of tapping into something, and I'd be interested to hear, because Vernda's got a cool experience of being on stage, but then also kind of being behind the scenes as a writer. And I think it'd be interesting to continue exploring this topic of unique needs of a woman artist. Like you said, adornment, feeling valued, feeling kind of nourished in a community way, right? When we think about our needs as women, do we have unique needs because we're women artists, specifically in the Bhakti community? Are there ways in which we feel we need to be supported specifically because of the art that we make, or the fact that we're women making that art? And Vrinda, if you want to maybe give some insight into that.
I mean, just what comes to me immediately is, like you said, I've been in a unique position where I've always been very encouraged to perform, and I'm very shy, actually. So it's been a whole process for me. Like, why do you keep, pushing me on stage? Why do I have to keep dancing? And even, my husband, Vishwambar, he's always, making me sing, and so I've been fortunate that I've been super encouraged, even against my own wishes, so to say. So, what comes to me is something that some of my unmarried friends tell me. They say it's so hard, especially in this Bhakti community, to be a single woman, because we don't feel encouraged. We don't see our place. And I realized that, I had no idea, because I do have, a male supporter, a male sponsor, a male, figure that's constantly rooting for me and constantly, advocating for me to have a place, me to have a voice. And, I am super grateful for that. And I see that many of us have husbands that are aware and eager for, the female voice to come center stage. We're really lucky. But then even, somebody like Ani, I just love hearing you sing, Damodarastakam in Kartik. You have such a beautiful voice, and I love hearing you sing. And I was just reflecting afterwards, because you were a bit shy, and you posted about that, and I was just thinking, oh my God, and I hope you don't mind, Ani. I was like just thinking, if she had been married to Kirtania, then she would have been singing, would be singing all the time, because she would have had that male figure, like constantly being like, okay, now my wife is going to sing. So the reality is that the power and the decision making and this kind of thing is still very much, with the men and the husbands. And it's something, Vish and I talk about often. Okay, why is this dynamic still there? Why can't a bhakta who happens to be in a female body, why can't she be equally empowered to just, sing a kirtan? And so that's kind of what came to me in your question, where it's like, we're experiencing this shift. Like Ani said, we're seeing more of the feminine voice coming up, and we're seeing more, really beautiful kirtan singers like you, Danya. You're really embodying and exemplifying for so many girls, because you're as skilled or more skilled than the male counterparts at times. But then still we see that this imbalance is there, where especially single women, or even, a married woman, we're not feeling as, there just isn't a natural in for us to express our art, especially, in kirtan or in class or whatever else, like, being in the spotlight.
Yeah, I think that this is such an important thing to be highlighting, because in many ways it kind of mirrors historically what it's been like even in secular society, which is people just assume a woman's not going to step into a certain role, right? We can talk about art, but we can talk about any realm, the professional realm, or, where it's just assumed that a man can do something, and it's not necessarily assumed that a woman can do it equally, or can do it better, or is, just as capable, or just as enthusiastic, right? In each of you guys' sharing, I heard this word shyness. of like, I was actually really shy growing up, and I'm just thinking like that is such a valued quality in women, and it's not equally valued in men, and it also creates a barrier, right? In so many ways, I'll be the like 4 out of 4. I was also shy growing up, and I felt like in many ways it protected me. Right? It protected me because it was like a little nest I could kind of always keep myself in. And I was very comfortable being alone and being in my own company and that kind of thing. But I also saw how like it created sort of a shield that became a barrier where I couldn't step out of that. I couldn't explore outside of that. And I saw that it was valued to be shy and it was encouraged to be shy. And people really liked that quality in women because there's something where shyness becomes submission. There's something where shyness becomes like, it seems very tame and very manageable. And so I think that women stepping into their power can make people feel uncomfortable. Either because they're not into it outright or because they're just not familiar with it, right? For some people, like Rukmini, you were saying, like, it's like an electrifying experience where you see a woman step into her power and she's just like, beaming with just Shakti, and for other people, that feels very unstable or destabilizing, right? It feels like unsettling. And so I think that this is something where, intuitively, I feel like in our Bhakti community, we should be examples of women's empowerment because it should be safe in here. And I know that historically it hasn't felt that way. We're talking about our generation to the next generation, but if we look at our generation and then the generation before, it wasn't safe to be expressive necessarily. It wasn't safe to explore your artistry or to, put yourself out there. Men didn't necessarily feel enthusiastic to bolster and uplift female voices, female performers, that kind of thing. And so I think that the Bhakti community could be, given the principles of Bhakti and given the like ridiculous level of talent of both male and female Bhakti artists, it could be like a flagship. It could be exemplary in compared to other communities of really celebrating women artists, because there's so much art made by women and women are so incredibly talented in our communities. So one of the things that I thought could be cool to talk about is, along these same lines of, valuing people and making accommodations for them and sort of like chaperoning them, which is what our guys tend to feel like, right? I felt very chaperoned, for example, by my older brother in Kirtan, before I was even with Bali, and now with Bali, and by all of my other kind of brothers in Kirtan, Amal and Vish and Kish, people who really, they're excited for me to share that service. What about women supporting women? Can you guys talk about what you might feel is necessary there, or what you might feel has really nourished you there at times when maybe men were not the ones to kind of bolster you?
I felt kind of both sides of that. 1 year, I think it was the last time we had Festival of the Holy Name, we'd asked Nadia to play harmonium for us, our women's singing group, and she couldn't come on the moment because her baby was napping at home. And it's just like, and we all understood and were totally forgiving about it, but it was just an interesting situation how she was stuck, so she couldn't come and support other women. And I've had other women through Kirtan. Adi Gopi has been a huge encouragement for sure. I just feel always in the Kirtan, the men are just more available to support if they are supporting. I would love to learn how to lead a Kirtan from other women. I don't know. It's never been offered or available. But definitely, yeah, definitely even words of encouragement and, being there is also encouraging for sure.
Yeah, I was just thinking briefly, like me and my friend Shamala Kishore, we often talk about like female mridanga players. and how she grew up like quite a talented mridanga player, and it was something important to her. But the not having that outright encouragement to always be there in kirtans and play, and then the natural shyness and kind of barrier that as girls we have, it kind of like keeps us out of those opportunities. And then it just made me also realize, like you're saying, like if there were more friends and people who we could have that culture of encouraging, because I know instinctually we kind of look towards the men, like, oh, ask that Prabhu or ask that person if we can play or do that. But I think even the act of asking if we can step up is like very, either it's kind of like not encouraged or it's really scary. Of course, it's so much nicer to be invited into something, but yeah, just that. I guess if we had more women who could invite us into things and create that culture of where we're really supporting each other. But if that's not already there, then it feels really difficult to get that, to even have the guts to like want to step forward into anything solo. So just thinking about that, the importance of that support. And
Rukmini, specifically in your art, because I'm thinking about your art and how your art, you have a huge following of people who really connect with your work, and your work is primarily, the work that you're best known for, let's say, is primarily working with emotions, which in a typical mind that falls under the category of the feminine, right?
Yeah.
And so you were saying you kind of accidentally stumbled into that because you didn't necessarily feel that that was your area of expertise growing up. So, do you feel like you have like equal following, men and women, or male and female?
No, a lot of women, a lot. At least when I look at the analytics on Instagram, it's like 90%.
Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I haven't until now really seen that, oh, like emotions, this is like a real bringing the feminine voice into the spotlight. But it is. And so that's just been interesting to see in that way, that I've gravitated towards this kind of pursuit of expressing emotions and also making it okay for people to express emotions. And yeah, that's been very interesting, and I think it's been really natural somehow, and it feels like I'm rightly situated, if that makes sense. Being like a girl, and with how I've grown up and everything, somehow I feel well situated to talk about this and to share it with others. But yeah.
Yeah, so it feels aligned, right? Because it's your experience, and then also your area of creativity where you express, then they seem to be like nicely aligned experience and expression.
Yes.
That's so cool. And so, well, this is interesting because a lot of times, let's say Vrinda and Ani, you're using your bodies to express sometimes these warrior women or these queenly women who are worshipped, who are adored, who are powerful, who are heroic. And that's not necessarily our lived experience. So where do you pull from? Where do you find that inspiration? How do you embody these extremely powerful women when you maybe haven't had that experience? What we were just talking about with the challenges. Where is that coming from? Where do you pull from?
Go ahead, Vrinda.
Well, first I wanted to just chime in. Something about Rukmini's art that I really love is that I was surprised to hear that it's mostly female followers you have, because what I think your art really does is it is androgynous in a way. I mean, it really speaks about level, and it's not a woman that you're illustrating. It's really a soul, or a being, a person. It could be man, woman. Nobody can look at your art and say, "Oh, this is a woman's thing." It's really universal. And for me, that's a very powerful commentary about, that typical thing that you hear, oh, women are people too. Sometimes it doesn't have to be that in your face, like, oh, this is about bringing the woman's voice in. It's like, no, your commentary is that, hey, we're all people, like we're all people on this earth, we're all going through these things. These emotions apply to men and to women. And so I think that's a really powerful, empowering thing for all people. Men need to be empowered too.
Yes.
But in terms of, it's really baffling for me to, encounter the lack of the female and this idea, oh, well, women can't really sing as well as men can, or they can't really speak as well as men can. Well, that's why the men do it, because they're better at it, or this kind of thing. I've always been baffled by that. It's but just like question marks above my head, like what is what is going on there? Because in my experience, I just look at the women around me, my mother, my mother-in-law, all my female friends, even the artists, like the books I read, I'm just drawn to female artists and female people and women. And I feel like I just see so much intelligence, so much beauty, so much courage. And I'm just baffled that that's represented in art and in life, because I see it everywhere.
Yeah, I can see, like, we're all kind of like, yeah, like, duh. For us, it's like a total no-brainer that there's like almost an excess of incredibly talented artists in every medium too, because you're describing, people that you've read, people that you see, people that you hear, people, it's just so creative. And I think, as we get older and we see the people around us becoming mothers and we ourselves become mothers, you see the enormous output of creativity that is involved in mothering. And so I think that this is like such an important kind of myth to debunk, which is like the talentless women. I guess, there's so much talent out there. And I think that, fortunately or unfortunately, it sounds like the entire community is involved in making sure that these women's voices are valued and are heard, and that there's visibility, right? I know that, for me personally, I don't know that I've seen in our community that many women music producers, let's say. And so it's hard for me to look around and like find role models of what it's like from beginning of life through the end of life to live a full and fulfilling creative life. Because it seems to be like touch and go. They did their art for a little, then they had kids and they stopped. Or they had like, an amazing, very creative few years, and then their partner wasn't supportive, and so that fell apart, and that kind of thing. So I feel like circumstantially or culturally, there's this issue of like, can a woman be creative and generative, right? Like prolific in their art throughout their entire life? Or is it necessary for women to just kind of be like in and out and kind of have like a flow, where you're saying like, sometimes my creativity needs to reside kind of over here, sometimes my creativity needs to reside sort of over there, and it's like flowing in and out of different areas of our lives? Is that a strength? Is that a disadvantage? I mean, I've heard that come up in kind of all of what you guys have been saying.
I mean, when you look at like movie stars or famous singers, sometimes I think, if you had lots of money, then, you would be able to have as much childcare as you'd want, and then you'd be able to continue. Or perhaps, I guess it depends on what kind of mother you want to be. If you want your child to be taken care of by someone else for all those hours, or if you really just want to turn everything off and enjoy motherhood. And I think that, I think different personalities for different women, whether it's a disadvantage or an advantage, or it's something they're forced to do or something they choose to do, is definitely a question. I thought it was interesting, the flip, how I went from, full performer, all my work is applauded and acknowledged in public. There's fame, acclamation, to being a full-time mother where it is unseen, unacknowledged, yet so important, so valuable. And the quality of your motherhood is meaningful. Like, you choose how much quality you want in your mothering. And on those hard days, you're just like, I want someone to see me, like, I used to be seen and heard and looked up to and acknowledged and applauded. And now my work is harder than ever. And there is no acknowledgement and no applause. And I realized that, wow, we should just be standing up and clapping for all those moms. It doesn't matter what art you're doing, just clap for those moms, because the struggle is the lessons, the growth, the sacrifice is intense. It is so intense, yet there's so much that can be drawn for that in your art. So yeah, I that's why I say the art of mothering, because you have to be creative with every word you say to your toddler so that you can get them to do what you need them to do without fighting. There's creating, meals that what everyone in your family will eat. There's just, you have to, your brain is on. You have to really be creative with everything. It's just not something that is shareable with the world. And so it was just like this other side of the coin of being an artist in public and then being a mom. I feel like they're just as important, and you get what I mean.
So having a community that values your creativity, seen and unseen.
Yes. So supporting mothers and supporting artists, supporting women in whatever they choose to do is important. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, that kind of leads me into kind of a big portion of what I thought would be valuable in our conversation, because in every area in which you guys are sharing your art, seen and unseen, you're influencing a new generation of artists. There are so many people that look up to each of you, Rukmini, Ani, Vrinda, who are watching your art and who are being inspired by your art. I can say, like, even younger members of my family, I know, look up to all three of you guys. And I also feel a personal responsibility to create a conversation around this and impact the culture in a certain way. So I would really love it if each of you guys could share, what is your vision for future women artists? What is your dream for them? If really the sky was the limit, what would you wish for them? Since you guys are influential, you guys can actually create change in this direction.
I want another moment to think about it, but that's such a great question, Tanya.
Brenda, you want to maybe speak on this?
My sound is so choppy, so I feel a little sorry for everyone when I speak. Ani, Anna Piney, she just spoke about this. There's a conflict for women when we choose to become moms. How much childcare are we going to use or not use? And time is needed if you're going to be an artist. And I've been in that process for the past 7 years. My oldest child is 7, and I've also been actively producing the Seek Inspire trilogy in this time. But I'm not 100% sure that I would want to tell another new mother, like, take on an artistic project and you can do it, you can do both. It's kind of, I'm not really sure if you can fully do both. You're always going to feel conflicted, like, oh, I can't really do my art fully because I'm scattered and I have my kids. And also, I don't want to miss out on being with my children. And at the same time, doing my art is so fulfilling and so inspiring. So I feel as a woman, I do feel very torn between two almost opposing aspects. But recently I read one of my favorite fantasy art authors. Her name is Ursula K. Le Guin. She's a stalwart in the fantasy writing field. And she was saying she had 3 kids and she's a really well-known fantasy writer. And she was saying that she found no conflict between being a mom and being a writer. She felt like, there was definitely a challenge, but it was harmonious and there was no conflict there. And when I read that, I felt, okay, it's possible, but I personally don't feel like I've really found the balance. It always feels like I'm either rushing one way or feeling unfulfilled in another way. Ani, again, you feel like you're 100%, focusing on motherhood really, and maybe not being creative as an artist. But again, I remember still very vividly the first time I saw you dance. I mean, you're still like dancing in my head right now. So I think every little thing that we do matters so much. And yeah, I don't feel like I have a concise, formula that I can say to another woman, another girl, like, oh, just be an artist, it's going to be great. No, it's going to be a lot to figure out along the way. But what I would like to see, this is really my vision, is that you bring your full self to whatever it is you're doing. That there is a space to bring your full intelligence, your full art, your full heart, your full motherhood to whatever it is you're doing. If you're going to be a mother, an artist, both, that you feel encouraged and supported to bring your whole self to it, that you don't have to hide, that you don't have to minimize yourself. Just bring yourself to it, and it's going to be imperfect. It's going to be a work in progress. That's what life is. Even when you're 80, you're still going to wonder. That's what I see with the elders in my life. You're still going to be in the question, and that's okay. Just bring your full self to it, and that's my goal and my vision for all girls, all people, my sons, everyone.
Yeah.
I love that.
I like that. Yeah, there's a few comments here on our Haripriya says, just imagine the one who doesn't have the talent that you guys have and how hard it is for them to feel valued. So, artists, it's easy for us to feel valued. We have something that we're showing that's beautiful, that is our talent, and we're getting praise for it. But people who aren't artists, women, their work is not as valued. So Malini said she agrees with her. And Amrita Kaylee says, great points, ladies. I think we are all creatives, just more or less expressive in the typical sense. We are expressive in relationships and teaching and building community and gardening and cooking, etc. I believe we all have something to explore and express outwardly. I remember being on the youth bus tours, and I'd perform on stage. There'd be hundreds of people, and then part of the service of being on the bus tour is we would pick up trash afterwards. And I would be like, still have dance makeup on and like regular clothes, and I'd be picking up trash with all the youth on the tour. And I was like, this is so good for me. This is, we say a shloka before we dance to Hanuman, asking us to keep us humble. We go up on stage and everyone's looking at us. It's like, this is what I need. I need to just pick up trash after, this isn't just as important as dancing Krishna's pastimes. And then I started a tradition where after a performance, I would say, please, can we have another round of applause for all the people we cannot see right now who have not put on this festival. And I do really feel for those people who are washing all the pots so that they can be a feast, for the grandmas who are taking care of our kids, there's so many unseen, and that comes from, being a mom. There's so much unseen work especially I feel in the women's world. So I think as artists, we can be their voices and get the acknowledgement for all those women we stand with as women. I think that's important.
Yeah, I love that, Ani. I resonate with that part of being the voice of those who can't necessarily be on the stage or sharing it with others, because I often think of that like myth of the genius or myth of talent even, and that we give this idea that there's a certain few rare individuals who are gifted with talent, and thereby, they only do that, they stand on the stage, they shine, but this whole other dimension, you said they should be able to pick up trash and just also be, or just do the behind the scenes things too. And also just, I don't like that hierarchy of there's the talented and the not so talented. I think I love what Brenda said about everyone being able to show up fully as they are to whatever they do, and seeing that as a creative practice. I think in what I do, I get so passionate about people just experiencing creativity in some sort of way. It doesn't mean you have to be talented or this fine art illustrator or anything like that. It's just the sense of feeling the sense of expression and feeling so much joy. And the creative process is one of uncertainty, and it's one that's so feminine. It's not about this logical structures and this is my to-do list. It's just like a way of being and a way of stepping into the uncertainty and just kind of expressing yourself and kind of seeing what comes from that reciprocation. I get really excited about that. And I feel like, Dania, what you said, like what would be my vision for people is to experience creativity in their life. Again, not to have this burden of expectation to be an artist. Of course, that would be amazing if you could, but I think just that expectation builds like this paralyzing kind of fear in us and this paralysis of like, am I good enough? And then that can go down a deep well of comparison and all that stuff. So I think true creativity is very freeing, and it's freeing away from the sense of being an artist and like being perfect in how you express yourself and all of that. And it's more this way of being, this way of giving yourself fully to everything that you do. And it's just experiencing that joy of letting go of your inner perfectionist, your inner critic, and just doing what's on your heart, you expressing that. And Ani, like you said, like being a voice for those who don't have it. For me, that's so important. Whenever I draw emotions of anything, I like to feel like people are experiencing these things they don't know how to even put words to. And if I have some ability to put words and an image to like an ambiguous, obscure emotion, then I would like that to be a service to someone, so that when they look at that, they feel like their voice is being shared. One last thing is that as an artist, I tell people that my goal is to be a mirror. It's just to be a mirror of how they're really feeling, of who they really are. So it's not me I'm putting on stage and showcasing how great I am or how talented I am, but I'm just a mirror for showing how much is inside them, how special they are, how expressive they are. And I think that is really like a much more fulfilling place to be, a much more true place to be.
Beautiful.
One thing I've found, obviously I find it in you guys, and I know you all, so that I can confirm that it's true, but there's a feeling that I get when I'm around other artists that their hearts are very big, and that their hearts are so big that it's like overflowing, and they need to find like some art to put it all in, because it's just like, when I hear you guys speak, your vision is so pure. Your vision is for people to feel authentic. It's for people to feel grounded in a community of people who genuinely want them to experience, like Vrinda said, their fullest selves. Bring all of you, bring all aspects of you. Rukmini, you're talking about some of these emotions, they're not all like our top moments in life, right? Yeah. You're mirroring back some of these very muddy, confusing, at times seemingly kind of paradoxical feelings. But for that to also be valued, and for that to also be connected, not just to our common human experience, but ultimately, because we're in the Bhakti community, to our relationship with the divine, right? To our relationship with Krishna, that our art can in some way serve the person, and that can empower the person to connect to God. And I feel like that is kind of what brings it all full circle. I know that in my experience as an artist, I would hope that if my art did anything for anybody, it would be to kind of take their spiritual journey a little further, or to give a pause for thought, in the spiritual realm. So each of you guys are doing this in such a beautiful way, whether it's, crafting with your little ones, in some unseen corner of Alachua County, or you're giving name to this emotion that people, hundreds and thousands of people, might be like, what do you call it when you feel this thing? And then Rukmini puts out this visual and these just like a handful of words, and you're like, that's what I've been looking for, that exact wording. That's what I feel, or giving voice to these women that have been iconic and so historically important and spiritually important, but I've never actually gotten a flavor of who this person is, like you do in your writing, Vrinda, or seeing the embodiment of these personalities as you both do with your dance. It's such an incredible way of kind of engaging the senses and connecting with the feminine experience, divine and also kind of human. And I think that that's extremely powerful. I think that there's no way to overestimate the impact that we can have on peer artists, even artists older than us. I think we've all gotten the feedback of artists older than us, including women artists especially, who are just like, you guys are doing something so important, you know, and I feel like the younger generation would say the same. So many people are impacted by what you guys do. So your visions are beautiful. And, you know, my prayer is that the community can rise to the level of our vision, that we can generate that cheerleading, that encouragement, that enthusiasm, that holding space, that safety for each other and for other artists, and that way kind of create what we're looking to see. I know that you all do this in your respective circles and communities, and my hope is that, you know, the community can see women artists and say, I don't just love their art, but I love how they make it, and I love who they are when they're making it, and I love how they impact other people when they're making it, and how other people become inspired to make art and support others, right? Because it's who you become through making your art that is ultimately kind of the biggest masterpiece. What kind of artist was I at the end of my life? Not what kind of art did I create, but who was I? That's the masterpiece. So, you know, you guys are all exemplary in so many ways. Thank you guys so much for joining me. This conversation, of course, was more wonderful than I could have imagined, and it's because your contributions are valuable. I think that we could kind of, you know, look back on this and mine it for so many gems, and I hope that this is the beginning of a more and more fruitful conversation. Thank you guys. You've been awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danya.
Really quickly, I just wanted to make sure that people can follow your work or keep in touch with you in some way with whatever work you're doing or whatever art you've put out. If there's a YouTube channel, a website, a social media you'd like people to follow, a cause that you'd like people to support, if you guys could just take a minute and allow our audience to become familiar with how to follow up with you. Rukmini, do you want to go first?
Yeah, on social media, on Facebook, you can find me at Dear Rooksy. People all spelled risky, but it's Rooksy, R-U-K-S-I. Same on Instagram, it's Rockin' Rooksy, and just my website has all the info, so dearrooksy.com, and many things go out through there. I'd love to stay connected.
I don't really have any public platform. Facebook, Anapayani Jakupko. I have a YouTube channel if you have some toddlers who like little songs about Krishna. Yeah, hopefully some more in the future. Love you too, Hari Priya.
Yeah, you can find all my work at you can find all in my Sita's Firework at sitasfire.com.
Beautiful. All right, guys, please stay tuned to the Bodhaka channel so that you can find more conversations just like this. We're trying to ground Bhakti in the real, conversations that relate to our day-to-day life and our journey as spiritual seekers. It's been my pleasure to co-host this with you all. May this be the first of many conversations. See you all next time. Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you.